The story began in her dream where she saw the same man countless times. He had beautiful eyes and warm hands. His breath made her heart beat faster and faster. About herself, she repeated how her heart was pounding, wondering if it was her own. She was suddenly woken up from her sleep by a little boy scolding his mother for being late for work. The woman did not immediately come to her senses, not understanding what her son was talking about. He once again reminded her that today she had an important client, and remembering everything, she immediately rushed to the bathroom. In the bathroom, she rinsed herself with cold water. She thought to herself that all 6 years had passed, but she still could not forget that man. When the family sat down to breakfast, the son examined his mother from head to toe. Noticing that she was dressed not too nicely, he said about it. She asked why her son didn't like the way she looked, and the boy replied that his mother could see well, so he didn't understand why she had glasses. The son also said that the mother is no longer young and asked when she will get married. Such a question threw the woman off balance. Immediately after that, the boy announced that he wanted to take the day off tomorrow. Mom asked why, and he explained that tomorrow everyone will plant trees, and he was not bored. However, the mother understood why the son did not really want to go there. Tomorrow everyone will come with their parents, and the boy didn't want anyone to know that he didn't have a dad. Although the son was not yet 5, he was already very independent, which is why she saw him as his father. The woman suggested that he find a father who would accompany him tomorrow. However, the son was not interested in her proposal, and only informed that his mother still had 9 minutes left before leaving. At that, she got up and they left the house. When she arrived at the appointed place, there were a lot of people around, so it is not surprising that she was called here to help. The head of security ran up to her and informed her that they still couldn't calm the crowd. The woman told him to use the parking gate, even though it was against the rules. Suddenly, she was informed that private security guards had arrived. The woman was surprised that they arrived so quickly and noticed how a car drove up to them and the new guards immediately surrounded her. She also came to the car to greet the guest. When the client got out of the car, she did not expect to see the man from her dreams. The woman hoped that he would not recognize her. When the man turned to her, she was scared that he recognized her, but he only asked if she was the administrator. Smiling, the woman introduced herself. Guan Yin led him to the elevator, inviting him to enter. When he passed by, the woman could not help but admit that he was still the same as 6 years ago. However, the woman was a little annoyed that she had been called by another employee's name, which meant that it was Liu Chang who had to serve him today. As soon as they were in the hall, 2 more workers approached them from another corridor. The older man apologized for being late, pointing to the young girl who was supposed to meet him today. The administrator also apologized for being late, because she did not expect the client to arrive so soon. She still started to say something, but Wang Fu did not listen to her. Guan was already glad that she had missed this customer and wanted to leave, but the man stopped her and said that he wanted her to serve him during his stay. Liu Chang was about to say that her colleague was not very good at handling such important customers, but the director stopped the girl and turned his head to Yin, telling the customer that all the employees were capable. She understood what was hinted to her and came closer. The director pointed out to her that she was now in charge of Mr. Fu at the hotel. The woman still wanted to refuse, but understood that she could not, and began to wonder why Juan did it. She thought he had recognized her after all, but quickly dismissed those thoughts. Instead, Chan immediately answered instead of her colleague and said that it would be an honor for the administrator. The woman understood that the young administrator wanted to catch her, so she accepted the challenge and said that she would serve Mr. Fu while Liu would serve Mr. Nan. The girl got angry at this because the colleague not only stole her client, but also introduced her own. Meanwhile, Guan led her husband to the elevator to get to the right floor. In the elevator, she kept thinking about the fact that Juan had not changed a bit, even though 6 years had passed. She furtively looked at him, realizing that he still did not recognize her. However, all this was only for one night, and she did not understand how she could remember everything so well. Together with another guard, they entered the room. After standing a little, the woman said that if the client didn't need anything else, then she wanted to leave. But the man refused her. The girl asked him to let her go after all, and returning to her, the client said that he wanted to be sure that he would be able to find her at any moment. She smiled at that. Although she had not been warned about this, Guan gave him her business card and said that he could call her whenever he needed. After that, she quickly left the room and was able to breathe a sigh of relief only in the elevator. She just wanted it to end sooner. After calling the head of security, she told them to place increased security on the 56th floor and that no one should go up there. The security chief asked if it would be too troublesome, but the administrator replied that there was nothing to do because he was paying them money. After the call, I thought to myself that that man was like a tyrant. But she knew that Wang Fu was the crown prince of country A, which made him even more powerful. Immersed in her thoughts, she almost dropped the phone when she suddenly received a call. They called from the kindergarten, and the woman completely forgot that she was supposed to pick up her son. When she came to the kindergarten, she immediately met the teacher at the entrance and, noticing her facial expression, thought that her son had done something. The teacher said that she had heard from Gan that his grandfather had died. The woman did not immediately understand what it was about, but after remembering everything, she smiled and thanked her for her sympathy. In the car, the mother asked the boy not to say any more that he had no father. At that, the boy said that his mother herself said that he died. She didn't know what to say because the truth was that she said that to avoid trouble. After that, the boy immediately reported that today a model agency came to the kindergarten and offered him to become a model, and he agreed. At first, the woman wanted to joke about it, but after hearing that her son agreed to the proposal, she asked if he really liked taking pictures so much. To this, Tan said that his annual income would be $1 million, and then they would be able to buy their own house. In the end, she allowed her son to take part in the casting. She remembered that the owner of their apartment had now announced that the house had been sold, so they would have to look for a new place again. She couldn't help but agree that if everything goes well for her son, their life will be better. To show her son how proud she was of him, she invited him to dinner and asked what he would like. Tan began shouting at the top of his voice that he wanted the steak that was cooked at his mother's hotel. However, the woman tried to refuse him because she knew that at that time Juan was definitely in the hotel, so she offered her son to go to an Italian restaurant that opened nearby. At this, the boy could not help but notice that the mother did not want her son to come to the hotel. The woman immediately began to object, saying that she just wanted to show other places. Still, she knew the hotel was big, so she didn't think the two would meet. The restaurant was on the 13th floor. Before eating, the boy went to the restroom to wash his hands, and suddenly a drunk man entered there. The man told the boy to get out of here and tried to wave him away. Tang easily dodged the blow but almost fell and was caught by Huang at the last moment. Holding the little one in his arms, he began to drive away the drunk, and he sobered up almost immediately, began to apologize. After that, he immediately turned to the boy, asking if everything was okay with him. The little one immediately thanked for the help. Tan broke free from his embrace and left after saying goodbye. Fu couldn't help but pay attention to the boy's eyes because they were the same as his. The man had already rushed to find the child, but his assistant stopped him, informing him that the guests had already arrived. Juan once again looked in the direction where the boy had run, hoping to see him, but not noticing anyone, he followed the assistant. Sitting at the table, the boy greeted the cook, calling him Uncle Chow. The man returned to him, holding a ready dish in his hands. Tan immediately began to eat, praising the delicious steak. The boss was happy to hear the praise, but his eyes were fixed on Guan. The guy approached her saying that he heard about her problems with a new client and wanted to help, but the girl said that she manages everything herself. Exhaling a little with difficulty, he handed her the dish and said that it was at the expense of the establishment, offering her to try it. She agreed to try, but made a condition that she would pay for the meal, and if she was refused, she would not come to this restaurant again. Chow accepted her condition, but said that he would prepare dessert for them for free and left to help in the kitchen. Noticing how his mother talked with the cook, the boy noticed that he would not be against their communication. He began to list the advantages of the boss. Guan saw that her son was trying to woo her and asked if he would like the cook to be his dad. The boy categorically refused, so the mother told him not to do this again. After the conversation, she got up and said that she would take Tan to the pool when she was done. The boy was very happy and promised to wait. She kept her word, and after taking her son to the pool, she announced that she would go to the gym and then pick him up. The boy agreed and put on the glasses and dived into the water. The woman couldn't be happier that her son was becoming more and more handsome every day. While she was running in the hall, a colleague ran up to her and asked her to come with her, because Xiaotong and Administrator Liu were fighting. The young administrator scolded the boy, trying to ask him who he was because there was no one else around. The boy did not answer this. He was only indignant that because of such nonsense he was distracted from the lesson. Chan got angry at this and raised her hand to hit the child, but Guan stopped her in time. Liu said that her son stole one thing from her, but the woman did not believe her, demanding proof. Another employee also stood up for the boy, assuring that he could not steal anything, but the girl was adamant and said that she put the phone in her purse, but it was not there. After that, Guan asked the senior administrator to check the cameras to find out where the younger colleague's phone was. The man said that the cameras had not worked for 2 days. The girl said that if the phone was returned to her, she would close her eyes to the fact that it was stolen, but the woman again stood up for her son. At this point, the girl asked the senior administrator to give her his phone so that she could call the police and find the thief. They found the phone, and Guan told her colleague to wear lower heels because if she falls again, it will affect her reputation. After that, she went to the client's room. When she went in, she saw Juan standing freely looking out the window. This view captivated her. Before all this, when the girl asked and said she would call the police, the senior administrator asked her not to. The man turned to Tao, trying to find out if he had seen anything while he was here. The guy said that at that moment, he left. He also said that only the administrator and the boy remained here. Pointing to this, Liu again began to accuse her colleague's son of theft. Gon was still demanding proof, and while they were arguing, another employee ran up to them, calling the young administrator. She brought her phone. Chan took the phone, but clarified where the colleague was sure it was her phone. The girl explained that she saw her photo on the screensaver and must have forgotten it when she was in a hurry. There was a moment of silence, and Tang turned to Liu, saying that she had created a stupid situation. At that, the girl started shouting at the boy that he dared to say such a thing. His mother interceded for him, but the child had no father. Hearing these words, Guan lightly pushed her colleague into the water. While Liu was splashing in the water, the woman pointed at her son and said that anyone who insults her or the child will be held accountable. The mother told her son that if he was mistreated, he should know how to defend himself. The boy understood what his mother was leading to, but said that this girl would continue to bother her at work. At this, she smiled warmly at him and assured him that she would be able to stand up for herself and that her son should not worry because she was strong. The next day, she heard Liu crying in front of the office door, thinking that she was sorry for yesterday. When she went inside, she saw that they were trying to calm down her colleague. The girl showed her hand, indicating that it was swollen from being hit. She rushed to the director, saying that she could not work like this anymore when a colleague insulted her. Guan raised her voice, and the interlocutors became alarmed. President Li asked the woman if it was true that she pushed a colleague, to which she confirmed. She casually said it was by accident. She still wanted to ask about it, but suddenly Juan called her and the woman told her about it. The past conversation was completely forgotten, and the president no longer delayed the woman, saying that her client was satisfied with the service. Standing in the room, the girl finally raised her voice and asked why she was being called. Juan didn't say anything. He just gave the assistant a sign, and he approached the girl, saying that they would like to rent the roof of the hotel for the event, and asked if the administrator could arrange it. He also said that Mr. Fu will stay at the hotel for another 10 days. This news made the girl angry. Guan apologized and informed her that several rooms upstairs were all rented out, so she would not be able to fulfill Huang's request. The man said that he would personally handle it. The administrator was angry again that her client was so impenetrable, but promised that in this case she would organize everything. Going out the door, she was still angry with herself because she wanted to get rid of the client as soon as possible, but then she was told that he was still staying for a certain time. While riding in the elevator, she did not expect to meet him again. While they drove in silence, the girl wondered if this meeting was accidental. In the meantime, Juan took a little look at the administrator, noting that she had a good figure, but it seemed that she was hiding it on purpose. Paying attention to her eyes, he immediately stopped, because this look definitely reminded him of something, and he remembered that girl. He asked the administrator how long she had worked here. After her answer, I asked who she was before. Guan did not understand why the client was interested in her past. When the elevator stopped for a moment and people began to enter, Juan accidentally touched the girl's hand, but she immediately removed hers. The man wondered why she didn't like him so much. In a moment, the administrator jumped out of the elevator. Guan, in turn, was angry at her shyness because Mr. Fu only lightly touched her hand, and she blushed so much. Meanwhile, Tang auditioned for a modeling agency, taking various photos. It was at this moment that Juan walked into the hall, and the boy immediately caught his eye. He didn't even hear what the assistant was saying to him. In the end, to the assistant's question, the man replied that the boy was not doing badly. At this, the worker called Tan, asking about his parents. The boy said that he came alone but was ready to sign the contract. While in the office, Juan kept looking at the boy and then asked what the conditions were before signing the contract. The boy said that he wanted to be paid 2 years in advance. He wanted to buy a house, saying that it was difficult to keep changing houses. In a moment, Mr. Fu asked the boy why he had to agree to such conditions. One by one, the boy began to name the reasons, saying that after his test photo session there were other children, but it was his photo that was bigger. He also heard that the agency was in many countries looking for a model. The third boy noticed that now he was personally talking to the director discussing the contract, which made it clear that the man had personally chosen him. Juan liked this answer. After that, he turned to Director Shu and told him to immediately inform the boy's parents about the signing of the contract. At this, the boy stood up and approached the man and shook his hand, saying that he hoped for their long cooperation. Juan reciprocated. He asked what the boy's name was, and when he answered, the man gave the meaning of his name and immediately remembered the woman he could never forget. In turn, Tan also asked what the director's name was. The assistant was about to answer, but Mr. Fu cut him off and introduced himself. However, he did not know how to explain the meaning of his name to the child, and did not expect that the boy already knew that his name meant Emperor of the Kingdom. Director Shu raised his voice, noting that the two were very similar. If he didn't know, he would have thought they were like father and son. Juan wanted to say something to the boy, but he was cut off by the sound of the watch coming from the child's hand. The boy answered the call, and Mr. Fu heard Administrator Guan on the other end. He decided that this child was her son. The woman asked her son how the audition went. Tan said everything was great and talked about his successes. She also said that she had just finished dealing with her unpleasant client and told her son to come to work with her. Juan heard her talking about him. After the conversation, the boy asked the man if it would be possible to sign a contract in the hotel where his mother worked. The man agreed and signaled to the assistant. The assistant immediately led the boy to the exit to take him to the hotel. As soon as the two left the office, Huang immediately called Yin to clarify what he had heard about himself. The woman was not happy about such a surprise. In a friendly manner, she asked if the client needed anything, but without answering her question, he himself asked if she sometimes had a son. The girl began to question how he knew. The man said that he would tell everything at the meeting and hung up. She began to worry that he had found out who she was. While she was thinking about it, her son came up to her. He began to worry that something had happened to his mother, but the woman quickly replied that everything was fine. She wondered if it would be better to tell her son, but in a moment she became angry with the customer, thinking that he was deliberately harassing her child. The woman told Tan to wait for her because she still had something to take care of. She thought to herself that she would not let anyone take her son away from her. In a few minutes, she was already in Juan's room. She saw a whole bunch of photos of her son on the table. She began to worry again that they wanted to take her son away from her. Mr. Fu noticed that the administrator was nervous. He invited her to sit down and immediately told her that he would like to take Tan to Europe for 3 days. Although he explained why it was necessary, Yin immediately refused, relying on the fact that it was her son and she should be close. The man thought about it and in a moment said that she could also go with her son. She also immediately refused this offer, because she thought that now they also want to adopt her together with the child. The man looked at her carefully, not understanding her position. He thought that she had not read the contract, because it clearly stated that as a trustee, she should contribute to the company. She wanted to say something, but suddenly she looked at her son's photos again and realized from the way they were taken that it still looked like a real photo shoot and not stolen photos. The woman could not believe that her son had signed a contract with Juan's company. She couldn't believe it because she was sure that the company had nothing to do with her client, because she was checking. Their conversation was interrupted by an unknown sound from the bathroom. Looking around, the two noticed that the room had begun to flood. Guan quickly rushed to block the water, but the pressure of the water was so strong that she began to fall. Juan came up behind and caught her. She quickly pushed him away, but the man had already noticed that her glasses had fallen. He quickly pressed her against the wall and began to look into her face. He took off his glasses completely and began to question who she was. The girl kept trying to look away. The man turned her face towards him to look into her eyes. The woman was still trying to break free, demanding respect for herself and shouting that she would call for help. Juan did not hear her threats and only asked if it was her 6 years ago. Yin started to say that she didn't understand what he was talking about, but she still tried to hide her gaze. He saw that she was nervous, and the woman replied that in her place, The beloved would be nervous if he found himself alone with a hated client. This irritated him. Mr. Fu could not understand whether it was not the same woman, but everything about her resembled her. He pulled Guan in and kissed him. After that, he told her not to run away from him anymore. The girl quickly broke off the kiss by covering his mouth. She tried to break free again and almost succeeded. The girl started to run away, but the man grabbed her again. Pulling her to him, he began to say that she had been hiding from him for 6 long years. Unintentionally, his hand slipped on her clothes, and by pulling, he accidentally pulled off part of her blouse. At this, she again screamed for him to let her go. Juan did not expect such a coincidence and let the administrator go. The floor was wet, so he lost his balance and fell on the girl. The administrator loudly began to call for help, and the guards came running at her voice. However, Mr. Fu stood up and loudly ordered the guards to leave because what was happening was none of their business. The men immediately left the room. The woman wanted to stop them, but they did not hear her. Then she turned to the man and warned that if he did something to her, she would get a refund. However, the man did not touch her anymore. He himself was surprised by what came upon him, but turning his attention to her shoulder, he noticed that there was no tattoo there. The man apologized for everything, saying that he had confused her with someone else. Putting herself in order, she thought about it and realized that it was about her dad, who was no longer there. Will.i.r entered the room and handed the girl the clothes that Juan had given her. The assistant also handed over a small envelope and said that it was compensation, asking to forget about today. The girl understood that she was offered money because she was poor, but it only made her angry. She asked where Mr. Fu was now. The assistant wanted to stop her, saying that now was not the best time to visit, but she did not listen. Rushing into the room, she found Wana, who was also putting himself in order. He told her to leave immediately, but the woman was not going to give up and said that she would only leave when he canceled her son's contract. The man immediately refused it because it took him a lot of time to find such an ideal model as Tan. Then she threatened that if he didn't do it, she would tell everyone that he molested her, but he didn't care. He wasn't going to refuse. This made the girl quite angry. At this, she turned around, promising to take revenge. The assistant ran after her to stop her and offer more money. She turned to him asking if the assistant always helped to get along in such situations as today. He wanted to say that it was not so, but kept silent. Instead, he said that no one would believe the girl if there was no evidence. She didn't care. She wasn't going to give up until Juan canceled the contract. At that, she turned and left. As she walked down the corridor, she hoped that her son would not see her like this, but Chang Liu came out to meet her. She sarcastically began to tease her colleague, but Guan only told her to call the repair team. She agreed, but also said that she wasn't as good with luxury clients as Yin had suspected. In response, she was asked whether she had a job and what she had forgotten on the 56th floor. The girl understood that they wanted to accuse her of having done something with the faucet, and therefore began to defend herself. But the woman did not believe her, because Liu knew that only one bath had flooded. The girl began to retreat. After that, she pulled her colleague along, and in the dressing room they changed clothes, and Guan put herself in order. Ready for anything, she was ready to finish everything. She wanted to quickly end this game with Juan and disappear again as soon as possible. When she returned, the son immediately smelled the perfume of that administrator on his mother. The woman wanted to explain everything, but the phone call interrupted the conversation. Director Lee was on the phone, and the woman realized that Liu had already complained, but when she entered the office, she was very surprised to see a happy director. The director pointed to Will and said that he had already been told about everything and that the assistant had come to apologize in person. After that, Yi approached her apologizing to Juan and said that she was invited to dinner, but the woman immediately refused. Director Lee stepped in and assured her that the administrator just wanted more work today, but promised that he would replace her and she could go to dinner. At this, the assistant said that he would pick her up in an hour. Guan was annoyed by this situation, but she could no longer refuse. When they were left alone, the girl said that she had other plans today, but the director began to say in a pleading voice that he had a critical situation. He only asked her to try to help him stay in his post. She thought for a moment, remembering that until this moment, no one wanted to hire her, and only Director Lee reached out. In the end, she agreed, but made a condition that she would not work in the suite after this dinner and asked to be replaced. The director agreed. Returning to her son, she asked if he was hungry and that they had been invited to dinner. In turn, the boy said that he had already been informed about this, so he was looking forward to when they would come to pick them up. However, she was angered that Juan had become close enough to her son to try to convince her. The boy noticed the mother's reaction and asked about it, and the woman said that it would be better for them to refuse dinner. The boy thought about it and said that in that case he would go himself. Mom tried to stop him. She could not understand Juan's plans in any way because he said that he had confused her with someone, so she was angry why he still insisted on this trip. In the meantime, the boy was in a hurry because they had to pick him up, so he sent his mother to take a shower as hard as he could. In the end, she realized that if she could not escape, then the only thing left was to fight back. Under the jets of water, the woman pondered how it happened that Juan did not forget that one night in all 6 years. However, she also understood that Mr. Fu was upset that he did not see the tattoo or the mark after it. Nevertheless, she promised herself that she would never allow her son to be taken away from her. In the meantime, Juan called the tattoo artist to the office. The employee thought that Mr. wanted to make a drawing. However, Mr. Fu only asked how different the skin color was after the tattoo was removed. The master explained that if the tattoo was small or light, there would be almost no trace. Afterwards, Will brought him the registration information about Tan and the glasses Yin found in the bathroom. After examining the glasses, he realized that they were ordinary glass. He also began to read information about the boy and noticed that he was born on August 10th. From this, he determined that the woman became pregnant in November. The terms coincided. After that, he remembered Administrator Guan and that boy again, after which everything fell into place. Jumping up, he told everyone that he would pick up the administrator and his son himself and headed for the exit. Meanwhile, Tan had already fully gathered and was waiting for his mother. In a moment, she came out dressed in a tracksuit. The boy pointed out that it was too indifferent, but the woman replied that it was just dinner. After a couple of minutes, the doorbell rang and the boy ran to open it. Juan was already waiting outside the door. The boy led the man inside and wanted to introduce his mother to him, but it was not necessary, because they already knew each other. The man looked at her, addressing her. The girl was extremely surprised. Mom confirmed and said that he was their client from the hotel, so her son shouldn't call him uncle, but Juan didn't mind. Also, IR came to the apartment holding a whole bunch of packages and said that they were gifts for her and her son. She asked that all the packages be taken away, but Mr. Fu said that it was ugly to come to visit empty-handed, so if she didn't like the gifts, she could throw them away. The woman then asked him to help her throw everything away. There was silence in the room, and the assistant felt the oppressive atmosphere that suddenly prevailed. The boy wanted to defuse the situation somehow, so he approached the man and said that his mother was just joking. Guan was impressed by her son's action, but there was nothing she could do, so she confirmed that it was all just a joke and asked how Huang knew her clothing size. Without answering, the man simply sat down and told the woman that they could not leave until she put on appropriate clothes for the restaurant. While Yin was changing, Huang asked the boy about his father. Tan replied that he had died. This surprised the man a little. In a moment, Guan came out of the other room and announced that she was ready to leave. However, her choice of clothes unpleasantly surprised her husband. She seemed to be going to a funeral, not a restaurant. The girl noticed the expression on the guest's face, but ignored it and passed by again, emphasizing that she was ready to leave. Fu said nothing, only glancing at the woman in passing, paying attention to her hair. They went to the restaurant each in their own car. Then the assistant noticed that this made Juan very angry. However, in the restaurant, while they were being served, no one said a word. Yin studiously ignored her husband. In order to defuse the situation somehow, the gentleman asked the boy if he liked it. The child answered in the affirmative with undisguised satisfaction. However, his mother told him that his son should not talk while eating. It was bad for his stomach, and Tan calmed down. The ketchup from the piece of meat she was holding on the fork got on Juan's suit. The woman apologized for her inattention and quickly began to help the man get rid of the stain. However, the stain became bigger, and the woman thought ominously that now Juan would have to leave the restaurant. The man got up to go to the bathroom. Before leaving, he took one more look at her and could tell by her small smile that she did it on purpose. Tan pointed out that Mom had deliberately ruined Mr. S.'s suit. The woman told the boy to eat quickly because after that they would immediately go home. Then the boy asked if Mr. Fu was chasing his mother. The woman did not understand how he guessed, but replied that it was only her client. Instead, she decided to ask her son what he thought about her client. The boy said that despite his mood, everything was fine. She was surprised by such a high assessment from her son and was already beginning to contradict his evidence when suddenly Juan approached the table again. The man sat down at the table and wanted to continue the conversation, but Yin cut him off and said that it was time for her and her son to go home. The boy wanted more dessert, but his mother reminded him that the doctor had forbidden Tan's sweets. At that, they quickly got up and the child said goodbye for the last time. Before they had time to leave the restaurant, Chow approached them. The boy was glad to see him. The man noticed that they were going to the exit and offered to go together. But Juan stood up abruptly and said that he would do everything himself because they were his guests. He approached Yin and Tang and told the stranger that he would take them home himself. With that, he pulled them to the exit. Qiyu was left looking after them when his bride came up to him asking about their marriage. The boy did not want to be alone with her any longer, and therefore said that she has his documents, so let her do what she wants. Juan led the guests to the parking lot but did not hesitate to let them go, so Juan got into the car without saying a word. The girl didn't like it, but she understood that it was useless to argue, so she gave up and gave the keys to the car to the assistant. After that, she got into the car in silence, and no one said a word to her either. Mr. Fu decided to have a little chat with the boy and asked about his birthday. Tan confirmed that it was on August 10th. The boy also showed his passport. The woman realized that it was impossible to give the document to Juan and tried to take it away. And although she did not succeed, she was not going to give up. She kept trying to take the passport and said that she still wanted to terminate her son's contract. While they were fighting, the man quickly looked at the document and saw that the boy's blood type was the same as his. He tried to calm the girl and said that he entrusted the staff with the purchase of flight tickets and hotel reservations, but she ignored this and again said that she wanted to terminate the contract. Tan, in turn, asked his mother why she wanted to do this. She replied that she would be busy and would not have time to go with him. The boy said that he could go by himself. In addition, he pointed to Mr. Fu and said that he would look after him. The man confirmed with a smile. Turning to the girl, the man said that he asked her director to give her a leave of absence, to which she refused so that he would not worry about it. When they arrived, the woman told her son to get up first. The boy did not argue and went home. Returning to Juan, she asked him to give her the car keys. Seizing the moment, the man grabbed her hand and directly asked if Tan was his son. She tried to deny it, and then the man informed her about the date of pregnancy and the birthday of the boy. Everything matched, as did the blood group. The woman again began to prove that it was just a coincidence, but Juan did not listen to her. Instead, he asked why she left that morning. While the girl was trying to escape, her phone rang. It must have been her son. It helped, and she was able to break free. At the end, she said that it was the first time she saw Juan and her son was not from him. After that, she tried to run away as quickly as possible. However, the man did not let her go so easily and grabbed her hand again. Pulling her to him, the man kissed her. This time it was more difficult to escape from this embrace. In the end, she broke free by rudely pushing him away and calling him names. Juan was a little offended and bent down to bite her on the neck. The woman screamed for it. Smiling, he wanted to leave and said that they would see each other tomorrow. Guan tried to shout at him, saying that he wasn't listening, that she had said this before and that she didn't want it. To this, Juan only said that he didn't care what she wanted because it was what he wanted. Without saying another word, he went on his way. At home, she kept thinking about it. She wanted to deal with it all, but she didn't want to carry out her escape plan. The girl understood that her son was finally getting used to the kindergarten, and because of that, it was even more unfortunate that Juan appeared at that very moment. Entering her son's room, she mentally promised that her mother would protect him so that nothing happens to him. She found a notebook behind her son's pillow. Opening it, she saw Tana's drawing, where he depicted himself with his father. The woman realized with sadness that the boy drew everything beautifully, but did not finish the figure of the man. Yin understood that it was because she had never told her son about his father. Looking out the window, she noticed that she was being followed. Juan must have been afraid that she might run away again. The next morning, Yi came to her and relayed Juan's words. She was invited to negotiate, and in the end, she agreed. She was also given an envelope. Opening it, she saw a drawing of herself sitting with her back turned. She noticed for herself that this was a mean move, especially when they said that she could keep this picture as a memory for her son. Will followed Guan to see what she would do. Juan communicated with him over the phone. He asked if the woman accepted the gift. The assistant said yes, watching the drawing fly into the urn. In the morning, they came and brought breakfast to Juan. The man looked at the chef's badge and was unpleasantly surprised. Then he asked where his former boss was. Chow smiled and said that he was filling in for a colleague while he fell ill. Just at that moment, Guan came up. She was surprised to see an old acquaintance here. While Juan made the order, the girl stood on the sidelines watching. She noticed that there was a strange atmosphere between the two. Nevertheless, she came to arrange the flight and asked how long it would take. She was told that it would be about a week if everything went well. Mr. Fu also said that he would keep their passports with him for the time being just in case. The woman understood that it was useless to argue, so she simply agreed, although she was a little angry. At that, the girl wanted to leave as soon as possible, but Juan lightly grabbed her hand and asked her to have breakfast with him. She could not refuse. The cook said that if he didn't like something, he could remake it. But Mr. Fu said that there was no need because he didn't want to upset Guan. The woman was quite impressed. She couldn't believe that her hated client had said those words. After that, the man looked at the cook with a meaningful look, making it clear that that was all. Chiao took the hint, but immediately announced that he could not leave the room until breakfast was over. It was a hotel rule. Huang said that in his opinion only Yin met all the rules of the hotel. The woman almost choked on her tea. The man immediately rushed to her, telling her to drink tea more carefully and asking if her tongue hurt after yesterday's kiss. The cook also rushed to the girl offering a napkin. She gratefully took it. However, Juan did not let her use it and wiped the remains of the drink from the administrator's lips with his own hand. Adding more fuel to the fire, Chao asked if Guan still had his coat. The girl did not answer while the men glared at each other. Yin stood up abruptly, wanting to be away from them. She was angry that an old acquaintance was now starting to anger her. Before she could take a step, Juan blocked her path. The man lightly hugged her shoulders and, turning to the cook, kicked him out of the room. Got angry but did not show it and just quickly left the room, saying that he would be in the kitchen in case of anything. In his mind, he couldn't help admitting to himself that he was really angry with Wang Fu. All these months, the cook cherished the hope of entering the world of Guan. The girl quickly got out of his arms and warned him not to touch her again. Mr. Fu did not understand what was the matter. The woman understood that it was useless to negotiate with the scoundrel and wanted to pour the tea instead of him, but the man covered himself with a towel at the last moment. The man said again that he would like to talk, but this time if Tan was present. The woman repeated that it was the first time she had seen him, and that the boy was not his son. Juan then said that he would like to do a paternity test, and if the boy is really not his son, then he will believe her. She understood the game Mr. Fu was playing and wanted to come out victorious. The girl easily agreed to take the test, but said that he would pay for it. Her quick agreement made his husband wonder if she really was who he thought she was. But if it is not so, then why was she so similar to him? In addition, all dates and blood group coincided. It seemed to him that it really could be a coincidence. However, he also thought that it might have been said on purpose to allow him to back off, which he wasn't really going to do, so he said he would pick her up in the morning. She paused in disbelief that he really wanted to do this test. He stood up and touched her hair, tucking it behind her ear. However, suddenly he pulled the rubber band and let her hair loose. The girl started yelling at him for this, to which Juan said that the next time she saw him, she wouldn't do such a hairstyle. She began to shout who he was to tell her so, to which the man replied that he was the one who would make her fall in love so much that she would not be able to run away from him. When she returned home, she immediately met Chao. He was waiting for her, and she immediately went to give him his coat. The guy said that he said about the clothes for a reason. Guan understood that he wanted to help, but she asked him not to leave such an expensive thing anymore. He joked about putting on a fake show, but in a moment he seriously said he was going to quit. She took it calmly and said that the boy didn't get used to it right away, after which she offered to have dinner together sometime because she wanted to thank him for his kindness. He replied that he was free for that at any time because they were still friends. She felt a little strange, but then realized that Chiao was the only one she got along well with. When they approached the elevator, it immediately opened, and a girl was waiting behind the door, who threw herself into his arms. The boy did not expect to see Qing here. In turn, Yin understood that these two needed to be given time and therefore hurried to say goodbye. The cook stopped the administrator. This is the first time she invited him to dinner, and he didn't want the girl to misunderstand Chu Xin's appearance. However, he did not have time to say a word, as the stranger immediately turned to Guan and, after greeting her, immediately said that she was Chao's bride. At that, the administrator left them alone and hurried to go about her business. When they were alone, the guy immediately told the bride to get away from him, and asked where he was from, and knew where he worked. The girl refused, that it was a secret, but if he really wanted to know, then first let him take her to the room, and there she would tell everything. The boy was fed up with these games, and taking her hand, he clearly asked which of his friends told him that he worked here. However, he had reasons to worry because if his grandfather found out that he was here, then Guan and his son could suffer. At that, the girl said that he himself invited her and showed her the phone and a message that indicated the address of the hotel and the room. After seeing the message, Qiao immediately understood that it was from Wang Fu, and leaving his bride, immediately went to deal with it. In the director's room, Will came to inform that the cook had already announced that he wanted to resign. The man was pleased with the news. Driving in the car, the girl could not believe that because of the stubbornness of the client, she would still need to take a paternity test. She kept thinking about how to get out of the situation when suddenly her son called her and asked where they were going. The mother replied that her son was waiting for dinner with the photographer to discuss further filming. The boy immediately asked if Mr. Fu would be there. The woman was surprised that her son became so attached to the director because before that there was no one with whom he got along so well. In the end, she replied that if the boy wanted, then Juan would be there. The boy then asked if his mother would quarrel with this man again, but she assured him that she would not touch him if he did not provoke her. Tan also said that he checked all the information about Juan and decided that he would be the best fit for his mother because she deserved it. Yin looked at her son. Although he spoke like an adult, he was still a child. She would like to explain to him that their worlds were different. She was on the dark side. Just as she was doomed to live in the dark side, so Juan was doomed to the light. Finally, they arrived at the place and the director was already waiting for them. The boy greeted with joy. Mr. Fu noticed that the woman had braided hair. Yin thought to herself that she would not let it go, but the man saw that her hair was braided around some kind of stick. The girl walked on and was met by the executive director of children's clothing, Xu Enran. She was also immediately introduced to a photographer who would work with Tan. When they sat down at the table, everyone was surprised that Juan helped the woman to sit down. Everyone wondered what her origin was. Over the meal, they reassured her about her son's photo shoot and assured her that they would do everything in the best possible way. While everyone was having dinner, Guan turned her attention to her son and Mr. Fu. She realized that she hadn't noticed how close they had become before. In a moment, she stood up and said, "That will go to the toilet." Left alone, the woman cut a little of her hair. It had to be as long as her son's. If Juan wanted to do the test so badly, she would let him do it. But she promised herself that she wouldn't let him take her son away from her. When she returned, she noticed that her son and Mr. Fu were quietly talking about something. The man quietly told the boy that it was only their secret. Approaching, the woman reminded her son that he should be quiet while eating. To this, the boy immediately replied that he had already had enough, so he could afford to talk a little at the table. This made Huang laugh a little, but Yin, on the contrary, got angry. She had already thought that she wanted to throw something at him. At this, the woman said, once they finished, it was already time for them to go home. Mr. Fu also stood up and said he would help. She wanted to stop the man, saying that she would handle it herself, but Juan did not hear her and took the boy's hand and led him to the exit. He told Tan that tomorrow they would eat French food. Guan quickly caught up with the boys, and stopping her son, deliberately pulled out a few of his hairs while telling her son not to arrange a meeting for tomorrow. The boy was somewhat upset by this, but did not want to argue. With a smile, he said goodbye to Mr. Fu and went to the car. When the two of them were left alone, she gave him those hairs, and at the same time asked Juan not to be so kind to Tan, because he was not his son. The man asked her if she was really sure that the boy was not his son. The woman replied that she was sure of it, because a mother would never forget who the father of her child was. Returning to the room, he asked the assistant when the test would be ready. Will said that the time was set for tomorrow. A re-examination will be carried out after the examination in the coming days. Mr. Fu plucked a couple of hairs from his head and warned the assistant that all this was to be kept confidential. His personality was special, and if Tan is really his son, then he needs a guarantee of this while the mother and child are safe. While she was packing for the trip, the phone rang. She immediately picked up the phone. She was informed that they would come for her tomorrow at 7 a.m. The woman replied that it was not necessary because she and her son would go to the airport immediately to save time. After that, there was silence in the tube as it dragged on. She wanted to hang up, but Juan stopped her. Then she asked why he was silent. The man admitted that he had been drinking. The woman wished him a good time and wanted to hang up, but the man asked not to. He said that he missed her, and these words made the girl angry. She hung up the phone and angrily continued to pack. In a moment, the landline in the kitchen rang, and the boy picked up the phone. It was Mr. Fu again, and asked me to hand over the receiver to my mother. She picked up the phone, but not to answer. With a sharp movement, she broke the cord and told her son to go to sleep. After that, Tang asked if Mom liked Mr. Fu. Guan paused, not understanding where her son had such assumptions. The boy explained that many people were running after his mother, but only next to Huan did she lose her balance. The woman answered that the son was thinking in the wrong direction. She just wanted that man not to interfere in her life. She didn't want to pursue this topic any further, so she asked her son if he wanted to sleep with her tonight. The boy happily agreed. In her sleep, she heard someone knocking. At this, she stood up sharply, realizing that they were knocking on her apartment. Before she had time to open the door, Huan burst into the apartment. The girl did not have time to say a word and did not expect to see him here, even at such a late hour. Without explaining anything, the man asked if the boy had already fallen asleep. Guan affirmatively refused and therefore asked him to leave the apartment. Then he asked her where the wine was. The woman did not understand at all what this was about, besides she had no wine, but Huan rushed to her and said that he did not believe. Looking into his eyes, she kept trying to understand why he came at such a late hour. She began to worry that her hair-swapping trick had been exposed. However, the man himself was thinking about something else, because all this time he was working overtime to be next to her and Tan on photo shoots. While he was working, he didn't think about anything in particular, but when he wasn't busy with something, all his thoughts were filled with Yin. He really wanted to see her. But despite this woman not only disconnected during the conversation on the phone with him, but also cut off the connection. He hugged her tighter. She wanted to free herself, but he held her so tightly that her pajamas slipped a little from her efforts. The woman tried to free herself again, and at first she succeeded, but the man grabbed her again, preventing her from leaving. Guan only told him to sober up first, and warned that the child would be woken up by this noise. However, Huan did not listen to her and grabbed her and hugged her again. The man below bent down as she tried to move away. Mr. Fu kissed her, and he remembered this kiss because it was the same then, 6 years ago. There was no way he could forget that woman, whom you only had to touch once to want to never let go. After breaking the kiss, the man was definitely sure of his thoughts, so he asked Yin to be his wife. However, the girl immediately refused his proposal. Huan asked her the reason for the abrupt refusal. Without waiting for her answer, he immediately said that he was not interested in other women, he liked only her. To this, she replied that the problem was that she did not like him, but the husband was not going to give up, and said that he would do everything to make her change her mind. While they were fighting, Tan approached them, saying he wanted to use the toilet. Seeing the picture in front of his eyes, the boy pretended that the room was very dark, so he hurried back to bed. Yin couldn't believe that her son had left her so easily. After that, the woman warned that if he wanted to see her at the airport in the morning, he had better leave now. However, he was not going to go anywhere and only said that he had been looking for her all these years and asked if she was thinking about him too. The girl withdrew again and only said that he had confused her with someone else. The phone rang and the husband had to let her go to answer it. He was informed that the test results were already known. In a moment, he was told that Tang was not his son after all. Huan could not believe it. Guan also heard this conversation, so she was pleased with herself that she proved herself right and said that, as she said, Mr. Fu was wrong from the beginning. In a moment, the man turned to the woman and asked if she had played some trick for this, because he still could not believe that everything leading up to this turned out to be false. Yin began to say again that he had mistaken the woman, and it was not her, but Huang did not believe her. He insisted that she confess that she was with him that night, but after a short silence, the girl answered again that the man was wrong. Without saying anything else, Huan simply left the room. Being left alone, it seems she should be happy, because that was the result she wanted. However, for some reason, looking at Mr. Fu's very sad face, her heart began to ache. The next day in the airport hall, they immediately noticed that the director was already waiting for them. The boy was very happy to see him. The boy wanted to rush to the man, but his mother stopped him, pointing out that the man was clearly not feeling well and it was better to leave him alone. But Tan nevertheless broke free from his mother's arms and ran to the man, giving him the cake that Yin had prepared for his son in the morning. However, the woman herself was not happy about it because she personally made this cake for a boy. The boy pretended to forget that his mother had prepared sweets for him, so he began to offer the cake to Mr. Fu even more forcefully. Catching a glimpse of the child, Huan couldn't believe that he had been wrong about everything, because the boy looked so much like him when he was young. Tan kept holding the cake, but the director was in no hurry to take it. Even the assistant wanted to refuse him to accept the pastry. Finally, the man suddenly stood up. Although the truth that the boy was not his son disappointed him greatly, he understood that he did not want to upset the child. Taking the cake from the hands of the happy child, he immediately tasted it. The boy asked if it was tasty. Having tasted the pastry, the man did not immediately manage to say that the cake was indeed very tasty. After that, the boy immediately offered the rest of the cakes. This made Yin even more angry. Contemplating all this, the woman insisted that she would take her son to the toilet, although he refused, but it was useless to argue with his mother. While he watched as the mother dragged her son to a quieter place, Will turned to the director asking why he wouldn't adopt the child, because it was clear how much he liked the boy. Eve quickly assured that it was only a proposal, and at that very moment they had already announced the start of passenger boarding. Juan looked at Guan and couldn't understand why he couldn't let this woman go if she wasn't the one he was looking for. He thought that the reason might be the kiss that was so familiar, or the smell of her body after a shower. The man immediately came to his senses, interrupting these thoughts, and took a bite of the cake to recover. However, after these thoughts, the cake itself also began to remind him of Yin, and he quickly pushed it aside, saying that it was too sweet. In the plane, the man also could not find peace. His head hurt mercilessly because he never managed to sleep. He couldn't concentrate when he saw Guan with his son. In a moment, the boy came up and offered to play chess, reassuringly, what his mother taught him because she played very well herself. Both of them looked at the woman, expecting that she would object, but she immediately turned away from them because she really wanted to sleep. At this, the boy immediately admitted to Juan that his mother could not sleep last night because she was thinking about him all the time, so now they will stay together. The man agreed to play with the boy, besides, he was in no condition to do the work. When the boy opened the box, Mr. Fu was still surprised that there really were chess and thought that it was difficult for a little one, but he could not refuse. He let Tan make the first move and turned his attention. That the boy was surprisingly very calm. He also noted that the boy played very carefully and made smart moves and that he had already developed a certain strategy. In the end, Juan saw that the boy was putting him at a disadvantage in the chess reign and had to accept him as an opponent. Nevertheless, the man managed to win this game, but the boy did not want to give up and wanted one more game. The boy's determination struck him again, and he remembered that he was the same as a child. Their voices woke up Yin. The woman suddenly broke off because she thought that something threatened her son. However, she did not expect to see the picture of her son calmly sitting in Juan's arms, and they were looking out the window. The boy asked if the man had a brother. The man said that he had a twin brother, and that he constantly bullied himself to feel older. Tang said that Uncle Yi was quite interesting, and that someday he too would like to have a brother to play with. Guan heard every word, but as soon as her son looked at her meaningfully, she immediately looked away, making it clear that this would never happen. The man also looked at her and said to the boy that having a brother is really not so bad. When they arrived in Paris, the boy immediately began to look around. He was fascinated by every place. At the booked hotel, they were met by a servant, and the maid pointed to a bell that could be called in case of anything. While Mother was talking to the servant, the boy rushed to Mr. Fu and asked if there were any horses here. The man said that there were 2 horses here and ordered the employee to take Tan to them. Yin heard that they wanted to take her son to the horses, so she warned the boy to be careful. Juan turned to her, saying that she needed to rest too. Left alone, the woman looked around. She did not expect that Mr. Fu would choose this particular hotel. Of course, she was no longer here. Even from this place the garden could be seen. The sight was extraordinary, but Yin quickly came to her senses, realizing that it was impossible to leave her son alone. She quickly went to sort things out and then returned to Tan. While in his room, Juan looked out over the hotel's scenery from his balcony and suddenly saw Guan making her way to the horses by a short route. Mr. Fu was quite surprised because this path had long been abandoned and overgrown with trees. Even the workers did not know about it. He took a closer look at her and a smile spread across his face from the fact that Yin accidentally knew about this move. 2 hours later, the boy had already returned to the hotel and started looking for Mr. Fu's room, and finally realized that having so many rooms was problematic. In a moment, Juan himself opened the door from his room and invited the boy inside. The man immediately asked him if his mother often visited France. The boy replied that he did not know if his mother had been here, but he was sure that she loved this country very much. The boy also said that his mother, when she saw different beautiful places in France, was always surprised and told how it fascinated her. The man thought about the child's words, and in a minute asked the boy to bring his mother to the library to discuss something. Without delay, Tang went to fulfill the director's request. The man didn't even have time to say anything to that. He just chased after him and told the boy to be careful and not hurt himself. Already in the hotel, Yin was thinking about why Huang had called her to this place, when she suddenly heard the sounds of a familiar song. She went into Huan's room where the song was coming from. Her husband was already waiting for her. She did not want to prolong the conversation, and the man immediately informed her that in the morning his men would pick her up to take her to the studio. At this, he said that she could be free. This made the girl quite angry, that only because of this he called her. Outside, Will accidentally met an angry Yin, but she ignored him. The assistant entered the room and Huan told him to contact the best DNA expert. The next morning, Guan began to feel that something was wrong, and it seemed that someone was following her. The son noticed his mother's concern and asked about it. The woman immediately replied that nothing had happened and, handing her son a jar of water, told him not to forget to drink more on such a hot day. While her son was drinking water, she noticed a few hairs on his shoulder and immediately put them in a bag, realizing that she should be more careful. Meanwhile, Huang carefully followed Yin and his son through the window, and as soon as they left, he gave the signal to start. While the assistant was inspecting every corner of the room, Mr. Fu noticed a drawing on the table. When he got closer, he saw that the boy had drawn a horse on which he and his mother were sitting. At the end of the picture, the man noticed the caption "family," and it caused him a warm smile. Will distracted him from his thoughts and informed him that he had not been able to find a single hair. The man thought that the room was being cleaned, but the assistant replied that he had given an order in advance that the servant should not clean this room. At this, Huan realized that this woman was putting sticks in his wheels again, and he was sure that she was the one who gave him the fake hair for the recent analysis, and now she was also cleaning the room. Mr. Fu couldn't even help but smile at the fact that he underestimated Guan after all. Meanwhile, the assistant offered to take the boy's glass or toothbrush to do the test. However, the director said that this would only raise unnecessary suspicions and told him to send the latest samples immediately. After that, you need to organize a party. Meanwhile, the boy's photo session was in full swing. After all the necessary photos were taken, the boy asked the photographer to take a couple of photos with his mother. The photographer agreed and said that now there will be beautiful panoramic photos against the background of the event. The boy ran up to his mother and took off her glasses. The woman wanted to take the glasses but did not have time because the photographer took a photo for them. The photographer himself was also amazed at how good the photo turned out and said Guan that at such rates she could also become a model. She thanked him for the compliment but replied that she was hardly cute enough to be a model. At this, the woman hurried to say goodbye, saying that it was hot outside and it was time for them to go back. The photographer did not delay them. When the clients left, the photographer felt sad that the woman refused the offer so quickly. Although she looked beautiful with glasses, without them you could immediately notice her piercing gaze. Returning to the hotel, the boy said that he did not know if Mr. Fu was here now, but he would like to ride some more horses. The woman was surprised that her son was still not tired after a whole working day. In the bathroom of her room, she suddenly noticed that she used to put her toothbrush on the right side, but now it was on the left. She also noticed that there was still water around, and that's why the maids didn't clean the room, so she wondered in her mind who had entered her room. While she was examining the bath, Wan came to the room and immediately asked the boy how the shooting went. Tan told everything. After that, Mr. Fu offered him to ride the horses together, if the boy was not tired. He was very happy at the offer, but this time he wanted to take his mother along. The man didn't mind. Besides, he understood that Yin was very careful and wouldn't let the boy stay alone with him. The boy ran up to his mother and began to ask her to agree to go with them. Yin thought for a long time, but still agreed to relax a little. Wan was somewhat surprised. The girl said that she would quickly change her clothes, at the same time throwing a suspicious look at her husband because she could not leave him alone with her son. Meanwhile, Tan was pleased with his prank. As evening fell in another part of the world, an assistant entered the office. He handed the man a photo they managed to get from a personal photographer. The photographer, after taking the photos, deleted them almost immediately, but they managed to get one photo that showed Guan. The strange man was glad that even after 6 years had passed, Yin was still alive. Huan and Tan were already confidently sitting on the horse. The boy was quite fascinated by the process. For a moment, the man turned back to Guan to see if she needed help, but the woman jumped onto the horse easily. After a few minutes, they were already galloping across the field. The boy decided to ask what the name of the horse was. The man said his name was Bray and explained the origin of the name. The boy said that when he grows up, he will also get his own horse and it will be faster than this one. Yin eventually caught up with them, and the son waved his hand and said that his mother was slow, but the woman angrily replied that the horse was slower than theirs. They stopped in the clearing and gave the horses a little rest before they went for a little walk themselves. Seeing the grasshopper, the boy ran to catch it. Guan started calling her son to be more careful. Juan calmed her down and told the boy to have a little fun because it was safe here, but the woman gave him an angry look because she did not believe that her son could be safe in his territory. Suddenly, Guan relayed the photographer's words that the photos would be ready in 3 days, after which she wanted to return home with her son, but Juan did not allow it. While they argued, Tan watched them. The woman wanted to say something against his prohibition, but suddenly she saw the hair of her son that remained on the man's shoulder. She wanted to try to pick up the hair, but she didn't notice the pebble and flew at Mr. Fu. Falling, both rolled down the mountain, but the woman was glad that she did not break her head. When she woke up, she saw that she was on top of Juana. She quickly jumped back, but after looking at her husband, she noticed that her son's hair had got all the way to his collar, so she tried to take it away again. That she did not do, but it was not possible to remove the hair, and the woman herself did not know how it happened that they ended up in such a position. She quickly apologized and asked if she had hurt him, to which the man only asked to get off him, but the woman could not allow him to leave a hair. In a moment, she still managed to remove a hair and satisfied wanted to get up. However, Juan himself was not going to let her go now, even if the girl did not object. Until this moment, the woman showed him her indifference as much as possible, and now she decided to help. Yin had nothing to say to that. She tried to break free again, saying that now he was holding her and she was holding him, but her husband was not letting her get rid of him so easily. He thought that the girl was playing with him on purpose. While he was holding her against the tree, Yin noticed again that Juan's clothes still had his son's hair on them. In a moment, she became good again, which completely confused the man, and now he was sure that the woman was playing some games with him. However, having removed a hair, she was not going to continue to behave well with him, so she broke free and said that she would go first. However, the man did not let her slip out of his arms again. He still could not understand why the woman was provoking him. All this time, Tan was secretly watching them, hoping that all these actions would bring his mother closer to the director. Meanwhile, Huang began to go further and further, although Yin tried to resist, but after the kiss, which was not as perfect as before, she still began to give in. In a moment, the man offered her to come to him tonight, but the woman immediately refused, saying that she does not provide such services. He asked what she was trying to escape from. After all, many things were clear after the last kiss, but the woman refused. That it's just her body's reaction, not more. To this, he replied that if her body continued to miss him, she could come to him at any time. Guan got tired of these lustful words and, quickly orienting herself, threw her husband over her shoulder. However, even lying on the grass, Huang turned everything into a lustful joke, which made Yin very angry. Turning around, she told her son that they were leaving immediately, and the boy jumped up when he realized that his hiding place had been exposed. Having put her son on the horse, she immediately stopped talking about Juan. They quickly began to gallop in the direction of the hotel. Looking at her, the man began to shout that all this was her fate and that she could not escape from him. At the hotel, the man caught up with her and tried to stop her, but she broke free from his hand and tried to strike. Juan blocked her blow with his hand and jumped back quickly, realizing that the woman might do it again. His personal guards immediately ran to him and aimed their pistols in the direction of Guan. However, the director immediately ordered them to lower their weapons. The guards were surprised but still carried out the order and let the woman go. Without another word, Yin left in an unknown direction, but no one followed her. Tang also remained where he was, but turning to Mr. Fu asked if he would follow his mother, because it was clear that this time she was really angry. The man thought for a moment, not understanding why the girl reacted so sharply to a simple proposal. In turn, the boy again insisted that the director follow his mother, because that's what they did in dramatic scenes. If this is not done, misunderstandings may arise later. The boy explained that his mother was the kind of person who could be influenced by words, but she could not be intimidated by brute force. However, Huang immediately replied that he was not going to follow Guan. He thought that the blow the woman had given was quite strong. He had never been beaten twice by the same person. In the room, the girl began to think about the words of fate. She began to think that if she didn't try hard to fight, they would all be puppets in the hands of fate. A few minutes later, the boy himself came to his mother. The woman was distracted from her thoughts and immediately apologized for her behavior because she thought that she could scare him in this way. Approaching his mother, the boy only said that if she wanted to cry, let her do so, it's okay. The woman embraced her son. She understood that all she needed was for Tan to be by her side. The next day, the photographer told Will that today was the last day of the shoot and he could book a restaurant to celebrate. That same evening, the assistant came to Guan and informed him that Mr. would be waiting for them on the 4th floor to discuss her schedule. The boy decided to give his mother the opportunity to be alone with the director, so he asked the assistant to take him to his room. The woman made it clear that she had not seen Juan since that argument. Filming was completed, so I wanted to take my son away from here as soon as possible. In the room, Will offered the boy some fruit to eat, and Tan quickly agreed. The assistant noticed that the boy's nails were too long and offered to trim them, but he refused. Then Eve said that he would give a whistle as a reward, but this did not impress the child in any way. Then the assistant tried to offer other entertainment, but the boy refused. At this point, the boy's nerves began to fail. He didn't understand how you could take a DNA sample from a child with Juan's personality. At this point, the assistant decided to try something one last time and offered another game, in which the boy was still interested. The boy pulled out a couple of hairs and said that in his hometown, 2 hairs could tell how long a person would live. The assistant immediately showed by example how it should look. The boy seemed really interested. However, in a moment, Tang only mocked this game and said that every hair is different, so it was strange that the marked age changed every time. In the end, the assistant realized that he could not fool even a 5-year-old child. In a moment, the boy listed everything, what Will was trying to do, so he clarified what all this was for. Eve was worried that the boy had guessed everything and tried to get out. Tan did not give up and said that if the assistant told, he would give him his hairs, and if not, he would tell his mother. Meanwhile, Guan was already approaching the meeting place. From a distance, she noticed Juan, who was looking somewhere in the distance. However, this time his appearance did not affect the girl in any way, and she only let out a languid breath. When she approached, she immediately informed that her son's photo shoot was over and the film crew would return tomorrow, so she and Tan wanted to go too. This time, Mr. Fu agreed without any delay, which actually surprised the woman. In a moment, he offered to drink a glass of wine. The woman replied that she couldn't drink wine and immediately got down to business, clarifying exactly what Juan wanted to ask her. The man asked why she left that morning without saying a word. She immediately began to say that she did not understand what she was being asked about, and then Mr. Fu immediately replied that if Yin had not been here before, how could she know about the secret passage to the horses? Also, he only asked the assistant to tell her to come to him, but the girl did not even ask for directions and came so quickly. This made her realize that although she behaved cautiously, Juan still noticed her flaws. Leaning towards her, the man asked if she wanted to tell him anything. She freed herself and clarified what exactly she had to tell and asked that if she spent one night with him, then should she take responsibility for him. With some anger, she said that she had slept with many men and physically could not take responsibility for all of them. Rudely pushing him away, she told him to give her his passport, and after he had sorted things out at the hotel, he would leave somewhere with his son. However, Juan did not want to let her go and asked if what happened 6 years ago was just a flirtation. Yin understood that she had to continue this evil game and said that she just wanted to try something on him, and because of that, he easily fell at her feet. She assured that it was not love at first sight, but she herself decided to ask if it was possible that he really fell in love with her. This question made him somewhat angry. After the meeting, she returned to the room and found her son with the assistant. The boy decided to save the day and quickly began to see Will off, saying that he already wanted to sleep and offered to finish the game tomorrow. At that, Eve quickly left the room, and in a moment the woman decided to ask Tan whether the assistant sometimes asked him strange questions and did nothing strange. The boy immediately replied that there was nothing of the sort and asked why his mother asked, but the woman did not answer, thinking that she was just fooling herself once more. However, all this did not give her peace, and looking out the window, she noticed that Mr. Fu was going to go somewhere, even though the hour was late. Suddenly, she realized that seeing the assistant next to her son was not a coincidence. She was sure that Juan had brought the assistant for a reason, and at the same time he was distracting her. Now the man had something to do the DNA test again. After that, the girl decided to search his number. After entering the password, she went inside, somewhat surprised that Juan had not changed the password in 6 years. After checking every shelf, she finally found her and her son's passports. Then she ran out of the hotel holding her son in her arms, where a car was already waiting for her, because before that she reported that Tan had a fever. Getting into the car, she told the guard not to worry about the director and promised that she would report everything herself as soon as they arrived at the hospital. Meanwhile, Juan had already arrived at the laboratory and, handing over the samples to the assistant, told the laboratory workers to start the test while he waited in the car. Watching Will rush to hand over the samples, he finally calmed down because today he was going to find out for sure if Tan was his son. While driving in the car, Guan suddenly asked the driver to stop the car, saying that she felt sick. Having gone outside, she leaned against the wall and stood like that for some time. The driver approached her, handing over a can of water. However, she did not accept the water. Instead, with a quick movement, she hit the driver so that he fell unconscious to the ground. The girl searched the unconscious guard and, finding the phone, threw it into the pool so that the man could not immediately inform Juan about everything. She immediately called from her own phone to book tickets and leave Paris in an hour. When the result came, Huang was very angry because it clearly said that Tang was his son and everything before that was just a game of yin. However, he could not understand why she left the child if she did not love him. To deal with this, he quickly returned to the hotel, but he did not find Guan there. It was very quiet around, and Mr. Fu realized that something bad had happened. Returning to his room, he looked at the shelf where the passports were, but it was already empty. Breaking into the room, Will revealed that Lady Yin had called a driver to take Tan to the hospital, but then threw away his phone. He was worried that the plane had already left the country. Without wasting time, they also flew after her and immediately came to her apartment, but the woman was not there either, and the owner said that she left behind her things. Juan immediately told the assistant to buy the apartment, and then they should talk to the owner. After leaving the apartment, the assistant continued and said that he had called the airport, where they were informed that Guan's plane had left 3 hours ago. After that, the director told the assistant to give orders to track the girl's car. He himself was sure that she was still in the city, on the outskirts, but he did not understand why she was running away from him. Will offered to hire a person to find the woman from the photo, but Juan immediately refused. He kept thinking about the reason why Guan avoided him. In the end, Yves wanted to confess something else, namely that Tang himself had given him the hairs in exchange for the truth, and if he hadn't told everything, Guan would have found out about everything. Juan immediately asked if the boy now knew who he was to him and wondered what Tan said to that. The assistant confirmed and thought about how best to tell about the boy's thoughts. The child's words made it clear that he blamed the principal for not rushing to find his mother. The assistant said not to pay attention to the boy's words. Meanwhile, Yin and his son were already standing in front of the door of the new house. They had to change their place of residence again, but the boy thought that he would not have to go to kindergarten for some time. At this, the mother began to apologize for the inconvenience to her son, and immediately pointed in the direction of the sea, saying that it was for this that they moved. She began to assure that summer will soon begin, and this is a great opportunity to spend more time at sea for various activities. However, the boy said that the doctor forbade his mother to be in a humid environment for a long time. Then the mother began to offer other housing options, but the son denied everything. At this point, she began to give up, although she understood from the very beginning that it would not be easy. Noticing his mother's disappointment, Tan reached out to her and said that he would forgive everything, but he wanted to stay in this place, at least for a little while. The boy threw himself into her arms and said that he was a little tired. Taking him in her arms, Yin looked around a little. The city was quite big, so if she was careful, she wouldn't be found. In his mind, Tan was addressing Huang, saying that he had kept his mother here for him. If he still can't find them, then for the boy, he will definitely become unworthy to be either a father or a husband to his mother. Sitting on the sofa, she kept looking at the photo. She would never have thought that Juan would not forget her after so many years. She wanted to throw the photo away, but at the last moment she caught the card. She told herself that Mr. Fu should not be too fond of it, because she kept this photo only so that her son would have at least some memories. However, now she needed to return to the hotel where she worked, because the birth certificate and other important documents of her son were in the hotel safe. In his room, Huang kept looking at the photo of Yin with his son. Now that he was sure that Tan was his son, he couldn't take his eyes off the photo. He promised himself that now he cannot afford to lose both of them for any reason. He asked the assistant if there was any news, but he said that it was still quiet. The man thought that the woman would hide from him first, but if she still had unfinished business, then she should return. That's when he realized that something still had to be left in her office. Standing up sharply, he immediately went to the elevator. At that moment, Guan also came to the hotel, and looking around did not see a single soul, which could not help but be happy. She understood that she must take these documents. Entering her room, she immediately rushed to the safe and opened it, glad that everything was in place. However, she did not have time to take them away, because she heard someone's steps outside, so she leaned against the wall to listen. In a moment, the steps stopped, and the woman thought about what she heard. She opened the door to check everything, but Juan was already waiting for her at the door. Without saying a word, she tried to bypass him to run away, but the man quickly grabbed her and, returning to the room, closed the door behind him. She tried to resist, not understanding what they wanted from her. If the woman didn't scold him but Mr. Fu didn't care, he just wanted to know where the boy was. Guan was not going to say anything and only said that he had no right to know about it and would not let him take his son away. The husband assured that he did not want to take the child away from her. He just wants to be a good father. The girl did not listen to this and ran away, because she did not want to leave her son alone for a long time. After that, she immediately hit him and the man flew to the door. The girl asked why he did not dodge. However, he didn't want to evade, because Yin wouldn't even let him explain anything. Pulling out a knife in a flash, she rushed to him and pointed the weapon and said, "That not everything can be explained." Then he said that in that case, he would not move, because he could no longer let her escape from him. He began to ask her to allow him to take care of himself and his son. Juan wanted Tan to have a father. The girl was shocked by these words, but she could not allow this to happen, and pressing the knife harder made it clear that she would not be afraid. She did not let go of the knife, but was unable to take the next step. The woman hid for many years and could not allow a failure to happen, because if he found out, the consequences would be terrible. The man took her hand away from his neck, which was dripping with blood. He knew she could kill him, but she wouldn't. Rudely pushing him away, she pointed the knife at her neck, asking if he would leave or not. Mr. Fu did not immediately believe that she could have harmed herself, but the girl began to cut her neck, screaming for him to go away and Juan to surrender. He moved away from the door and the girl quickly ran out, warning the director not to follow her, otherwise she would never see Tan again. In the empty room, the man saw a small thing lying on the ground. Picking it up, he saw an emblem with a red flower on an unknown device. The next day at breakfast, the woman was angry about her concessions yesterday, that she had to threaten suicide in order to get out, and besides, she also forgot her thing. The boy noticed his mother's angry state and asked what she was angry about. The woman replied that it was him, which surprised Tan even more. In a moment, Guan got up and told her son that she had to go look for work and warned him to stay at home, but the boy said that he was still growing, so he needed sunlight. To which Mom said that he can go out on the balcony. No matter how much the boy tried to deny it, it only made the woman angrier. After some time, the woman brought her son some leaves and a drawing kit to occupy him somehow. After that, she went to the exit, but the boy stopped her and asked if her mother loved him. She immediately answered in the affirmative, saying that Tang was the most important person in her life. Then the boy hugged her and asked what would happen if he did something she didn't like. Yin assured that no matter what he did, he would forever remain her child, but of course, such concessions could be punished. With that, they said goodbye, and standing outside the door, she thought about the device she had lost. The woman was not too worried about it, because she knew that the device was under a password that was not easy to crack. The boy kept watching his mother through the window, and as soon as she left, he immediately called the Korolevstvo Hotel. In the suite, Will reported to the director that this device had been identified as a portable hard drive, and that if it was hacked too quickly, data could be lost. Juan let out a languid breath. Instead, he thought that this thing was important to Yin if she decided to go back for it, so he was sure that he would have an advantage as long as he had this device. In a moment, the phone rang, and the assistant immediately picked up the phone. He was very surprised to hear Tan's voice. Before Will could say anything else, Mr. Fu took the receiver from him and immediately asked for the boy's location. The boy avoided answering, instead saying that he was calling to ask a few questions. The first of them was the question of whether Juan really loved his mother. The director immediately replied that he loved. Then the boy clarified that his mother had a difficult character. She did not know how to cook and behaved in a childish way, and once again asked if Juan really loved her. To this, Mr. Fu said that Yin was an important person in his life. In addition, if you really love someone, then all the disadvantages even become a plus. Tan listened attentively and wanted to hang up, but the man stopped him because he wanted to know where the boy was, claiming that he wanted to make up for his guilt. The boy immediately replied that he would not betray his mother, but he could only say that he forced her to stay in the city for a while longer. In addition, the boy said that he still did not recognize Juan as his father. The man was mildly upset and assured that the time would come when Tan would call him father. Then the boy offered him to find them in 3 days, after which he would be rewarded. The director accepted this game. After the conversation ended, Juan immediately ordered the assistant to trace where the call came from. Will obeyed immediately. The headmaster breathed a sigh of relief. He had finally received some good news and now knew that Yin would not be leaving the city for some time. 3 days have passed. Guan told her son that she had made an agreement with a school that was close to her company and that the boy would be able to study there. She said she needed to know the money and left Tan to wait. When the door closed behind his mother, the boy immediately turned around and, noticing Mr. Fu, immediately greeted him. Juan asked about his reward, to which the boy said that his mother's birthday was in 3 days. After that, he hastened to say goodbye. Her husband found her at a fitness center where Yin was a Pilates and fitness trainer. The headmistress started praising Guan and also informed that their schedule is very flexible and they will be able to find a convenient time for him to study. The woman also told him about the advantages of the annual card. He couldn't help agreeing and asked Yin to become his personal trainer. The girl herself had no idea who her VIP client was, but she was very happy when she learned this news. For this, she received a bonus, which she wanted to spend on her son. On the way to the client, she paid attention that there was a personal guard standing in front of the entrance, which surprised her, but when she entered, she immediately saw Juan and immediately tried to leave. The security guards did not let her leave, and the man in turn said that he had come to return her lost device. She immediately began to demand the disc back, but the director simply turned around without saying a word. Guan herself was also in no hurry to perform any actions, because there were significantly more guards. Juan said he just wanted to talk, but the woman immediately cut off all talk of her son. This angered him, but he knew that she would sooner break down than listen to him, so he tried to divert the conversation. He offered a deal, but the girl immediately refused. Ignoring her refusal, the director continued and suggested that Tan finish his propaganda, and after that he would return the disc to her. She tried to take her thing back with words, but Huang only replied that Tang was also his son, so he had the right to see him. She didn't have enough strength to object to this, so she agreed to the deal anyway, but on the condition that after a month, Mr. Fu would no longer interfere in their lives. He promised that he would do so. In turn, she also swore that she would follow the agreement, and the director recalled that 6 years ago they also swore to each other. In a moment he grabbed her hand, and the girl thought that the director was up to something again, but he only kissed her palm. After the conversation, he asked when they would start classes. The woman couldn't help but admit that it was from this that everything started, and Juan spent money on classes, becoming a VIP client. She replied that she needed to pick up her son, to which Mr. Fu said that his assistant could do it. After that, she told her husband to get ready because she had prepared a special program for him. She was already expecting to scold him, when suddenly she saw that the man had started to change his clothes right in the hall and drew attention to it. Mr. Fu asked if she was embarrassed by this. And although she had already spent the night with him once, she still realized that she could not take her eyes off him. Finally, he changed his clothes and classes began. Guan tried her best to give him considerable loads, but the man performed them without any problems. After 40 minutes, she began to notice that Juan was still getting tired and asked about it. Seizing the moment when she got a little closer to him, he grabbed her close to him and asked if Yin wanted to continue. The girl still did not understand what he meant. The man stood up a little and just kissed her lightly on the forehead. It was at this moment that Tan ran into the hall, and this made the woman jump. After that, the girl immediately pushed Huang away, and they both pretended nothing happened and continued training. But the boy didn't understand why his mother was fighting with Mr. Fu. The man assured that everything was fine with him and even offered the boy to sit on his back. Tan was happy and asked his mother's permission. She helped her son sit on the man's back and told him to hold on well, after which Juan continued to do push-ups. In the end, the boy was quite impressed that his father was really physically strong. While Mr. Fu was doing push-ups, he simultaneously started asking the boy about everyday life at the new school, about his new acquaintances and classmates. The boy answered with joy. Guan could not look away from this pleasant sight for her, because the son was riding on his father's back for the first time. The woman decided to leave both of them playing for the time being, and changed her clothes herself. In 10 minutes, she told Juan to continue training, and it was time for her and her son to leave. Tan also said goodbye. When they left, Mr. Fu immediately turned to his assistant asking if there had been any progress on their case. Will said that he managed to chat a little with Tan on the way, and he told that when he was 3 years old he moved to B-Town, and he didn't remember anything before that. The boy also said that his mother had no friends. The man still couldn't help but think that if Guan hadn't taken care of him, she wouldn't have given birth to their child, but in that case, he didn't understand why she continued to hide from him. He also couldn't help but think that none of the staff really knew anything about Yin, and it made him uneasy that something this bad could happen to her. With that, the director told the assistant to continue with the plan and told Will that he would pick up Tan tomorrow. The next day, a fashion show of the year took place at the Dynasty Hotel. Will noticed that Guan must be tired, so he offered her some water. The girl thanked and immediately turned her head to her son. She could not help noticing that her son felt quite at ease in such a situation. The woman noticed that Tan was very similar to his father. However, the whole event came to an abrupt halt because the electricity went out unexpectedly. Yin immediately rushed to look for her son, but it was very quiet around and nothing could be seen. Besides, there was no answer from him. Suddenly, she heard someone play the piano and noticed a small light in that course, so she immediately rushed there. A child's voice began to sing a happy birthday song, and Tan came into the light holding a small cake. The woman was pleasantly surprised by the surprise arranged by her son. The son replied that it was not he who needed to be thanked, and pointing to the piano said that it was Mr. Fu who played a welcome tune for her. She looked at the man and noticed how focused he looked on the game. It quite impressed her, although she herself did not expect it. In a moment, his smile at her irritated her a little, and she hastened to turn away. Yin tried to calm down and asked her son to blow out the candle with her, but the boy said that she had not yet made a wish. She thought for a moment and then spoke her wish. The woman wanted her son to become cuter every day. In her mind, she turned to God, if he existed, and asked him to transfer all the difficulties to her so that her son would be happy. While she was thinking about her wish, Juan approached her from behind and her son approached from the front. Both men kissed her happy birthday. Mr. Fu took her hand and led her to another hall to cut the celebration cake. The girl followed him and was met and greeted by other workers on the way. The girl was about to start cutting the cake when Juan came up from behind again and took her hand and wanted to help. Leaning down, he lightly kissed her behind, which made Yin wince. In a moment, he spoke for her to concentrate. Tan approached them and said that Uncle Fu also took part in making the cake. The woman pushed the man away and turned to her son and said that then he should also be given a piece. Guan thanked Juan for organizing the holiday for her and said that she hadn't eaten cake on her birthday in a long time, so she served the first piece for him. He approached and, thanking her with a smile, accepted the cake from her. The girl couldn't help but smile at each other. She suddenly really liked how peaceful an ordinary life could be, but the cruel reality flashed before her eyes. She quickly recovered from the pleasant moments and what could have happened after that, so she takes a piece of cake and smears it on Juan's face. The woman hopes that this prank of hers will anger the man, which in turn will prevent him from becoming closer to her. Will wanted to help Mr. Fu remove the remaining cake from his face, saying that Miss Guan was only joking, but the man refused to help and licked the cake, saying that it was delicious. The girl hoped that this would anger him, but all efforts turned out to be in vain. Juan drew her to him, trying to find out why she behaves like a child. After a small kiss, he only told her not to do that again. The girl was in a stupor from all these events, so she did not say anything. While Yin left to talk with the other guests, Tan approached Mr. Fu and said that this was what he had warned his husband about, that Mom had a difficult character. After this, the boy immediately asked what happened to the gift that Mr. had prepared. The man immediately took out the box, and the little one asked what was in there. The man said that there were clothes there, and the boy was pleasantly surprised that Juan had personally made them for his mother. The gentleman said that he personally developed the design, made the pattern, and sewed it. I didn't even sleep all night because of it. Because of this, the boy began to believe that Juan would really love his mother, and then he would help him with everything by giving his little finger for an oath. Suddenly, Guan came and told her son that it was time for them to go, but the boy said that Uncle Fu wanted to take them on land. The woman was surprised and suspected that they were up to something. She did not give up and tried to force her son out, saying that the master was busy, so he should not be distracted now, but the man said that he was always free for them. He quickly ordered Will to reserve a table and took his son in his arms and went to the exit. The woman tried to stop them, but Juan said that if she was busy, they could have dinner without her. The girl got angry, but still said, "That will go with them." In her mind, she made a promise to herself that she would definitely limit everything to a month and no more than a day. Just as the elevator opened, they saw Chow outside the door. The guy said that he was looking for them, and the woman was quite surprised at his appearance. Ignoring everyone else, he asked what had happened and why Guan had resigned so suddenly. The woman replied that nothing had happened. She just wanted to change the work environment. The guy asked about her move and whether she needed help, but she didn't have time to answer because Juan hugged her close and said that Yin's problems did not concern Chow. After that, the guy asked if Guan had already had dinner and invited her to the restaurant. She replied that they were going to eat sushi and offered to go with them. The woman did this on purpose to anger Mr. Fu, but he did not give in and told the former cook that they had a family dinner and the third one was useless to them. Without saying another word to the boy, he told Tanu to say goodbye to Chow and led them both out. However, the boy wasn't going to give up so easily, and when everyone was getting into the car, he jumped out in front of Will to take the driver's seat, saying that he knew a good sushi restaurant. The assistant raised his voice and said that it was his place. The guy returned to him and gave him money and told him to take a taxi. Eve looked worriedly at the director and beckoned him to him with a gesture. The man whispered something to the assistant, after which he got into the car. On the way, Huang deliberately decided to clarify that Chow had been fired because of his engagement to Miss Chu. At this, the boy got a little angry, realizing that the director was specially revealing all his cards to Guan, but he replied that these were all his father's ideas and that he did not want it. The guy decided to repay Mr. Fu with the same coin, so he hurried to congratulate him on his upcoming wedding with the lady of F City. Juan was a little wary. However, the man quickly found his footing and said that it was just a rumor, while the former chef's engagement was true. He also said that he did not know exactly how to address the boy, Mr. Chow or Lu. The boy was very surprised for a moment, but quickly explained that Chow is his mother's surname and Lu is his father's, so he can call him whatever he likes. Secretly glancing at Yin, the boy couldn't help but admit that if he found her at such a time, he would be able to hide his second personality. Eventually, they arrived at the restaurant, and the guy helped Guan out of the car, to which she smiled kindly at him, and it only irritated Juan. He decided to interrupt their conversation and simply handed the driver money for the ride, after which he led his son and Yin inside the restaurant. Left alone, Chow angrily crumpled the bill, but promised himself that he would not give it to Guan so easily. He did not linger and also entered the restaurant, sitting opposite him and the woman, wanting to make the director feel uncomfortable. However, all his plans and intentions were abruptly interrupted by the bride, who burst into them and started shouting at the boy.